Nazanin join us? Hi, welcome everybody. So we're just getting started. So this is our very first Instagram live at AIUK. So bear with us. We're just gonna add our guests today, Shadi Sadr and Lola Ameri. So we'll just give it a few minutes whilst we add our esteemed guests.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm well. I'm sorry. I'm telling my publicist that we are on. Okay. Thanks. Hi.
Hi. Hi, is Lola, are you there? Yes. Amazing.
Yes.
So we're just waiting for Shadi. Lovely to see you both.
Good to see you.
Hello. Perfect. Without
Hi,
any
Shadi.
flaws.
Hi.
Hi.
Lovely.
Hello,
Okay. We'll just get started whilst we allow more people to join. So hello everybody.
Hello.
My name's Nina. I'm a crisis and tactical campaigner at Amnesty International UK, and a huge welcome to our inaugural Instagram live. And I'm so proud for it to be on the Iranian protest movement and to be joined by a wonderful host of Iranian women. So while more people are joining, I just want to remind everyone to please sign the Amnesty UK petition to the Iranian embassy. This is calling for Iranian authorities to end their all-out militarized attack on demonstrators. You can find the link in the pinned comment. There is a QR code that is available on the pinned comment. Amnesty International has gathered evidence of lethal force used in numerous cities across Iran that points to a harrowing pattern of Iranian security forces deliberately firing live ammunition at protesters. Our research has also highlighted increased levels of violence being used against Iran's ethnic minority communities. A monthly gift to Amnesty International UK could help fund investigations and ensure accountability for the most serious crimes under international law in Iran, including crimes against Yeganeh Lola Ameri. We're going to be taking questions in the end, but let's get started. So today we're going to be talking about human rights in Iran and the current popular uprising for freedom in the face of violent repression. There is currently a crisis of impunity in Iran, yet Iranian women, children, and men are risking everything to have their voices heard. And unless we see credible action from the international community, many thousands remain at risk. Since September 16th, 2022, a nationwide protest sparked by the brutal killing of Yeganeh Ameri, over 300 people have been killed by Iranian authorities, including at least 41 children. We are aware that the true death toll is much, much higher than that. Victims, families, and communities in Iran and in the diaspora deserve justice. The latest wave of human rights abuses against protesters follows decades of state violence and repression. And I think there's overwhelming agreement now that it's well high time that the voices of Iranian people are heard and Iranian authorities are held to account. Now, I am so honored and so delighted to share this live today with our wonderful guests, Shadi Sadr, Nazanin Boniadi, and Lola Ameri. 3 generations of incredible Iranian women, past, present, and no doubt future human rights defenders and experts in their fields. Thank you all so much for joining us today. So, as an introduction, I would like to ask each of you, in no more than 1 to 2 minutes, can you each tell us what does woman, life, freedom mean to you personally? So starting with Nazanin, please, and then Shadi, and then Lola.
It's so good to be with you all. I wish it was under better circumstances and we were talking about better things. But woman, life, freedom for me is the battle cry of the first female-led revolution of our time. And it strikes at those words, strike at the very heart of a government and authorities that are anti-woman and against life and repressive, and have stripped the Iranian people of their rights for 43 years. So for me, it really symbolizes the galvanization of all rights across Iran And I love that the Iranian society at large has recognized the intersectionality of gender equality with every other right, most basic freedom across society. So now you've got a moment for the rest of the world to see how powerful it can be when women are at the forefront of a movement.
Shadi, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Nina John and Amnesty UK to hold this live and give me the opportunity to speak. Woman life freedom reminds me of myself amongst a bunch of young women going to Mehrabad Airport in Tehran in 2003 to welcome Shirin Ebadi after receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. Back then, there weren't too many opportunities, so we decided to use that opportunity to join the crowd with the slogan, "Women's rights are human rights," and I think this is still very relevant and valid of what we want today. As no democracy will be achieved without women's rights and liberty. And also, every time that I chant woman life freedom, and the fact that we owe this revolution not only to Jina Amini and her brave family, but also to so many beautiful lives, so that the rest of the country joined them in this struggle for freedom and democracy and continued it alongside them.
Great, thank you so much, Shadi. Lola, do you want to go next?
So for me, Woman Life Freedom is a global movement. It's talking about the three main pillars of any society and of life in general. Without women, you can't have life. Without freedom, you're not really living life. So they all kind of like interlink. And it's something, the reason why I say it's global is because I know we're talking about Iran, and it started with the Kurds and it started with us Iranians. But it is, like Nazanin said, there's still countries out there where women are oppressed, child abuse still goes on, there's animal abuse, the LGBTQIA plus community is not accepted. So it's about all of those brought together. And the importance is that if we start with a country like Iran, where all of this stuff happens and, there's no human rights, there's no basic human rights, then we are able to take that and make a change worldwide and show that from one country we can impact the world.
Thank you. Such a good point. And there's definitely something to be said about the global resonance of that slogan, Women Life Freedom. And that's why we've called on Instagram after that today. Now, I'd like to ask Nazanin, in particular, thinking about last week's landmark Human Rights Council resolution, what do you think the international community has done for human rights in Iran? And what do you think, importantly, needs to be done next? What do we need to do further?
Yeah, I mean, it was an unprecedented moment in the sense that we haven't had, of course, we have the 2011 re-establishment of the mandate for the special rapporteur, which is very important. And I want to just point out that came off of the back of the 2009 Green Movement. So it's always credit to the people of Iran for rising up, for galvanizing the international community to do something. If anyone is talking to any of us on TV or lawmakers, it's because they're recognizing that people in Iran are risking everything to be heard. So, and so after that, we have of course had more protests since 2009. We had 2017, 2019. And unfortunately, we failed the Iranian people. We really have, across the board for 43 years. But what's unprecedented about this moment is the outcry inside Iran and the risks that people are taking inside Iran have really caused people to pay attention. And so lawmakers are paying attention, the media is paying more attention. And I think, you know, because of that, we got to this point. There have been many NGOs working alongside Amnesty, and I know Amnesty, Amnesty Secretary General Agnes Callamard and I wrote an op-ed a year ago calling for a special mechanism. Amnesty has been on the forefront of this fight. I think the 2022 protests solidified the need for this. A lot of people have been advocating for this. The Islamic Republic lobbied very hard to stop it. As the moment they realized that there might be a special session, the Islamic Republic lobbied extremely hard to stop it. What's unprecedented about this moment is the shift in votes. Even from the renewal of the special, the mandate of the special rapporteur in March, we've seen a shift. So 25 yeses to 6 noes. The 16 abstentions stayed the same, but there's been a shift, which indicates, and mainly in Asian and African countries, which shows that the international community is changing its perception on how they view Iran and the human rights crisis inside Iran. And I think the Iranian people should take that as a win. It's their struggle that has caused the world to pay attention, to talk to us, to talk to advocates. And you know, I just want to say how honored I am to be a part of Amnesty, because I think the work that Amnesty is doing is making a huge difference.
Thank you, Nazanin. Yeah, like you said, I know the Amnesty Iran team have been working for years and years towards that resolution, and you're right, it was a human rights win. Shadi, I know you as well have been working really hard, and you work really hard behind the scenes towards making that happen. Is there anything you'd like to add in terms of what steps now need to be done to kind of operationalize the resolution?
I absolutely agree with Nazanin that it was a massive victory, and we owe it to the brave Iranian people who are risking their lives in the streets, and so drawing the international community's attention. But I think we should actually be careful how this fact-finding mission will go forward from this point. And personally, and from the perspective of my organization, Justice for Iran, I would like to see the experts to look into to listing the perpetrators. So in addition to document human rights violation, I think they need to gather information about those who are responsible for this brutal crackdown.
Thank you. That leads me to my second question. We know this is not a moment, it's a movement. I mentioned the scores of unlawful killings in the last 2.5 months alone, but also there's been reports of mass arbitrary arrest, enforced disappearances, torture, and the threat of the death penalty, including against children. So I just wanted to ask you, Shadi, about the context of these protests. What is the human rights situation in Iran currently on the ground? And I'd also be really interested in knowing what you think an Iran that respects and upholds human rights would look like.
Yeah, as you mentioned, so I think for anyone who is following the global news, it's very obvious that there is an unjust battle between empty-handed protesters, often led by young women and men, ongoing in Iran, and against a ruthless dictatorship. And I think we need to remind ourselves that all of those heinous crimes are being taken place in the context of absolute impunity. The country has faced international crimes being committed by perpetrators since the first day after the Islamists came to power in 1979, while perpetrators face no consequences for their actions. The context of absolute impunity do not only undermine basic human rights, but also enable the dictatorship regimes such as the Islamic Republic to remain in power. So I think any actions towards accountability is key, both at international and even domestic levels, to recognize the plights of victims, as well as to achieve democracy. And so, as we have seen at the UN last week, the international community has expressed its will to support Iranian people and take more actions again, towards accountability. But what we need to see is just the global community to recognize the plights of, to recognize the Iranian people's right of self-determination. And I think it is, and if you look into the, to inside the country, people are determined in their demands for justice and accountability. They identify those responsible for the brutal crackdown and post their photos and names on their social media account to name and shame them. And also, when we made a public call to the Iranian people to come forward with the information that they have about perpetrators, so in the course of less than 24 hours, we received information about over 1,000 suspects. That actually, and many of them, those who have who contacted us, expressed their hopes that they hope that human rights organizations collect and complete and preserve evidence against perpetrators to be used in the future trials in a free Iran. And I think that has drawn a roadmap for all of us. And in terms of another critical point that I think we all keep in our mind is that as much as the success of this revolution is important, I think it is equally important to try our best to maintain its inclusivity and diversity. Iranian people, like other nations in the world, are not homogeneous in the way that they think and in the layers of discrimination that they suffer from. At the forefront of this revolution, and we shouldn't forget that no democracy will be achieved without them.
Sorry, Shadi, we lost you a little bit. We're losing you slightly. Can you just repeat that last point that you wanted to get across?
Yeah, I just wanted to touch upon a concern that I have, that we, all of us, as much as we are trying to this revolution to be successful, we need to just remind ourselves that we have to try and do our best to maintain its inclusivity and diversity, and also we should place women life freedom at the center of this revolution, and just make sure that everyone understands its meaning and its implications.
Wonderful, thank you. Nazanin, Lola, is there anything that you'd like to speak to that point in terms of, obviously this protest movement has been going on, it's 2.5 months, sustained protests. I mean, what do you think an Iran that respects human rights would look like? What should be the priorities of the movement in your eyes going forward?
I mean, I would echo what Shadi John just said, which is plurality. In any move for democracy, plurality is key. You know, it can't be a homogen. It can't be one voice. It has to be. I mean, it's one voice in the sense of we all are fighting for women, life, freedom, but we have to be inclusive of various ideologies and frankly, because we are very many groups ideologically. And so I don't see how democracy can be achieved without that being at the heart of it, which is what we want. I always say, be the changes is exactly what we want. We want to live and breathe the sentiments that we want and what we want and the outcome we want for Iran. And I think Shadi's absolutely right in the sense that we need woman life freedom to be the driving force for this, and not shy away from it being the first female-led revolution of our time. That doesn't take away from everything else which we're seeing in the sense of, like you said earlier, LGBTQ rights, ethnic minority rights, and so many other things, the right to due process, the right to fair trials, not having torture, or forced confessions, the very basic things that people need in life. But also, in the words of Tumaj Saleh, he said, a free Iran looks like going out into the street and not being worried that you're going to be abducted by the plainclothes militia and taken to a undisclosed location away from your family. A free Iran looks like women being able to protest without the fear of being raped or tortured or killed. And we are 180 degrees. It's a far cry from a free Iran right now, but hopefully with plurality we'll get there.
Thank you, Lola. Was there anything you wanted to add?
No, I think Shadi and Nazanin said it all really.
Brilliant, thank you. All right, that leads us to our third and final question, which is to you, Lola. What do you think are important questions to consider for both protesters inside Iran and the diaspora? And why do you think it's really important that non-Iranians should also be supporting this movement? I think we've lost Shadi, by the way. We're going to try and get her back, but in the meantime, yeah, please do answer.
So I come from a journalism background, and for me, what's really important with this revolution is the important role of citizen journalism and getting the voices of the people inside of Iran heard. I understand for a lot of maybe the viewers who are watching this live now, they haven't lived or experienced living in in a country which is ruled by a dictatorship, and so for them it's becomes background noise maybe after a while, kind of like how North Korea's become background noise for us and we've just scroll past it. But this is different because this isn't about just Iran. This is about, like we've said, all the basic human rights, but on a global scale. The reason why we're focusing on Iran is because the people in Iran are the ones who are fighting for this right now, and they're the ones who are pushing for this. But let's not forget the women in Afghanistan who are also pushing for women life freedom, the Kurdish women, people in the Baluch people. It's on a global scale. And it impacts each and every one of us. So it's important. Your role is very important, whether you're Iranian or not Iranian. Every single drop in this ocean creates a wave. And the whole point of this, the whole reason why we are continuing to protest and encouraging people to use the hashtags, the right hashtags, can I just say, because there's a lot of wrong hashtags being...
What's the right hashtag?
The hashtag is woman life freedom. Iranians are chanting Zan Zindagi Azadi. Zan is woman. It's not saying just one woman, but it's the idea of just the being of a woman. And to also use the hashtags of Mahsa Amini, make sure that it's the right hashtags in terms of the spellings and stuff used. If you don't see videos and pictures using the hashtag, comment those hashtags underneath it. In a country like Iran where it's censored, they don't have access to internet. The internet that they do have access to, it's very slow, it's very censored. So they almost feel like the world is not hearing them, the world is not watching them, which is why it's important for us on this side of the world, outside of Iran, to use our platforms. It really does not matter if you only have 200 followers. You don't need a big platform. The fact that you're out on your platform speaking about it, you're educating yourself about it, you're signing the petitions, you're asking your Iranian friends how they're doing during this time and what kind of support you can provide them. That also helps with the movement. And in terms of the videos that get posted on social media, the reason why it's important to keep sharing them is because, you know, that citizen journalism plays this huge part in this revolution. But to please make sure, blur the faces of the people in those protest videos if you can. Do not blur the location or what is going on, because that's the thing that gives us the most amount of information of what is exactly happening and in what location in Iran. But because these people that are protesting, they could have the possibility of a death penalty given to them if even just attending these protests, even just helping someone in these protests. It's very important to keep their identities hidden. So if you do see videos where their faces are blurred, then please, I encourage you to share it. But if there isn't, please don't share them. It's for their own safety. But yeah, this is a revolution. It's not a brief period. It's not a phase of just protests that we usually associate with the Middle East, and we think, okay, you know, this is going to die out soon. This is a revolution that is making one of the biggest impacts in history, and now is your time, however old you are, to show your, you know, how you can help with this. And it's time for you to be a part of this big historical moment.
Very well put. I think that's a good place for us to conclude these initial questions. This is a historic moment, and everyone should be supporting as much as possible. So now we've got 5 minutes left. We're going to take some questions from the audience. Thank you to everyone who's written one. Let's see, our first question. I think what our audience would really like to know is what people outside of Iran can do to support protesters and to support the protest movement. And I'd love to hear each of your perspectives to that question. Nazanin, would you like to go first?
Sure. I mean, I think keeping pressure on our representatives wherever we may be in the world to make sure that they stand with the Iranian people and not the authorities, and that it's very clear to me what that looks like. But what that should look like is we shouldn't be saving the Iranian regime at the moment. We should be focusing all of our attention on supporting the Iranian people, amplifying their voices, being unequivocal in our statements. That you know, some lawmakers have come forward and said, you know, we should have tangible reforms. The people in Iran, we should be asking people of Iran. The people in Iran are not calling for reforms. They're saying we want democracy, we want freedom. So this is very important for lawmakers. And on the other side, we still have this fact-finding mission. We still have many hurdles ahead. We need to make sure that that is adequately funded, that the administration is effective, and keeping in mind that the report comes out next summer. So we have to keep the pressure on of keeping the messaging alive, signing the petitions for freeing prisoners inside Iran, doing as much outreach as we can. Protesting outside. Please plan protests outside of Iran and go to rallies and amplify on social media, just like Lola said. Just keep the pressure on.
Can I just add to that, Nazanin? In terms of this keeping the pressure on, it's very important for people. I know there's a lot of news out now that, oh, this prisoner has been released, so-and-so has also been released, so-and-so has also been released. It's very important to remember a regime like the Islamic Republic tends to kind of use this as a way to kind of hush everyone down and say, look, we're releasing these prisoners, you know, because they know that everyone's like heard them now, and with everything going on with the UN. So this is their way of saying, look, you know, we're not actually as bad as you guys think we are. It's important, like Nazanin said, to continue with this. Like I said, every drop in the ocean creates a wave, and you need to have a series of waves for it to finally reach the shore, and in order for us to get the freedom that we need.
Great, thank you for that contribution. On the protests, it's worth mentioning that in the UK, we've been having protests every single Saturday in Trafalgar Square and every Sunday outside the
embassy as well.
Welcome to join those. Shadi, do you want to jump in on that question? And in particular, do you think, how can other movements show solidarity with protests in Iran?
Sure, absolutely. So, in addition to very great points made by and course of actions suggested by Nazanin and Lola, I just want to add one thing. Exciting, but it's also exhausting. So we do need every single human power around the world to offer their voluntary expertise and work on ours, whatever they can do and in whatever capacity that they have would be very welcome. I would recommend everyone who wants to support and show the solidarity to get in touch with human rights organizations, asking them if there are anything that they can do for those organizations to, as Nazanin and Lola John mentioned, to amplify the voices of this revolution and help this revolution to succeed.
Thank you, Shadi. And as a reminder, we're almost the end of our time. If you have an opportunity, please sign the Amnesty UK petition, and please consider donating to AIUK as well. So I think we've reached the end of our time. I'd just like to thank you all individually so much for joining me, and it's my pleasure to be on a panel with you all. Thank you so much again. I'm hoping we will have many more of these. Like I said, it's our very first Instagram live, so hopefully there will be more. If anyone would like to donate to Amnesty, please go to amnesty.org.uk /donate Iran, and we've left the QR code in the comments. Thank you so much again to our audience. Thank you for joining us. Hope you've enjoyed the discussion. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you all. Hope to see you all soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.